You are either the lock or the key to everything that you want. You just get to decide. Are you going to be the lock or are you going to be the key? Remember, the things that you want, like purely from your heart, were given to you for a reason. They are your birthright. And most of us spend our entire lives judging them or resisting them or making ourselves wrong because of them. And it makes me emotional because if I can help one woman live her life this way, that will be enough for me. Hello, icons. We are going to be talking about our feelings today, which is as much for me as it is for you, because I've shared before that I experience anxiety kind of frequently in my life. And this morning I woke up with kind of an intense sensation of anxiety in my throat. That's where I usually feel it. It feels like in my voice box and like all around my throat, almost like a boa constrictor is wrapped around my throat. Maybe you can even hear it in my voice right now. It's very tight. And I was doing some nervous system regulation before I came to record this podcast. And I've also at the same time have been asked a lot this past week about my self-coaching practice and how I've coached myself. Like, what is my maintenance? What does my practice look like that has helped me to show up in my business really authentically and audaciously and helped me create $1 million business from scratch, just with my phone, a microphone, and just going for it, just talking to people. And especially because of the coaching world that I come from, which is like Brooke Castillo and the Life Coach School, and where we were taught the self-coaching model. And there's like a very strong analytical side to it and like choosing your thoughts mindset piece to it. I think a lot of people expect that I have a strong self-coaching practice and that I do models often or I do thought downloads. And the truth is that I don't. I really don't do that as a practice. It's not to say that I don't ever do it, but I want to share with you today what I do instead and what I have found to be even more effective than managing my mind, or at least like a necessary first step before managing my mind. And it has to do with desire, it has to do with authenticity, it has to do with feeling your feelings, all things that I need to do today. So you're going to watch me do it on this podcast episode in real time, and I'm going to sell you on why this is so important for you. And even if you have a strong self-coaching process where you're doing models, you're doing thought downloads, you're choosing your thoughts intentionally, I really want to sell you on this as a next step before you get to choosing your thoughts. So we're going to do that today. And before we get started, I'm just going to take a deep breath and I'm going to drop out of my brain, drop out of all of the thoughts that I'm having and go into my throat right now. And I'm going to show you what it looks like to allow an emotion. So I'm feeling anxiety right now. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to describe, I'm not going to talk about why I'm feeling anxiety. I'm going to talk about what the anxiety feels like in my body. Often what we do as coaches and what we do with our clients, what we do with ourselves is we skip over the feeling part and we go right to, okay, tell me what you're thinking. Tell me this thought that you're having that's creating the sensation of anxiety. I'm going to start with the sensation. So I first describe it to myself. I'm feeling anxiety right now, and it feels like a tightness in my throat. It feels like pressure, almost like my throat is getting squeezed between two window panes or a trash compactor. And as I'm talking about it, I can feel it moving up. It feels like almost there's a rock in my throat, but it's moving up towards my mouth. And now it's going into my ears, and there's almost this ringing in my ears, and I can feel it moving up to behind my eyes, and I can feel tears forming behind my eyes. Now I feel this shaking in my throat. And this is Sarah experiencing anxiety. This is my body experiencing anxiety. Okay, so that's the first thing that I do is I just describe the sensation to myself. And as you notice, when I started, it was in my throat, but as soon as I start paying attention to it, it started moving. Okay, so I didn't get anxious about that. I didn't get anxious about the anxiety. I didn't worry that it was moving. I just let it move and I watched it and I continued to describe it. And now what I'm experiencing is the sensation in my throat, in my ears, in my eyes is a little bit less intense. It's almost like the edge has been taken off. I still have not gone to the thoughts. I still have not analyzed or explored why I'm feeling anxiety. I just stayed in my body and with that feeling. So I wanted to start off today's episode doing that because I wanted to process that energy. I wanted to move that energy to allow me to access my creative flow, to deliver the message that I really wanted to deliver with you guys today. And normally I would do that kind of emotional processing by myself, but I thought I would come on here and share that process with you. And I discovered this pretty early on in my coaching journey that it was much more effective at helping me create a result that I wanted when I allowed myself to feel before going to what is the thought creating the feeling. And sometimes I don't even need to do that step. Sometimes just feeling the feeling is enough and it kind of resolves. You don't even have to go do the thought work. Sometimes you do, but oftentimes this will just kind of resolve itself. That feeling, that sensation in your body is almost like a toddler, like a little kid that just wants to be acknowledged and paid attention to. I experience this all the time. It actually has really helped my parenting, especially with my 9-year-old who feels a lot of his emotions externally and in a very big way. I used to really try to go in and solve his emotions and try to talk them out. Now what I do is I'm more likely to just stand there and hold him or stand here and acknowledge him. And he's 9, so he can articulate what he's feeling and why he's feeling it very well. And it's amazing how little I have to talk and how little I have to take a proactive role in what's going on for him right now. I just need to acknowledge how he's feeling and be present with him. Get down on my knees, look him in the eye, wrap my arms around him, and just look at him and listen to him when he's talking. And he'll be so upset and he'll be telling me all of the things that are causing all of this angst in his little life in this moment. But just having me there to acknowledge and hold space for him is enough. And then he'll kind of talk himself through it. And by the end, maybe 1 or 2 minutes later, it's totally resolved and he's fine. And sometimes I haven't even said a word, or if I have, it's just been affirmation. So I experience this with my kids all the time. I do the same thing for myself. So here's what I discovered about this process and why it's so effective. My job, my number one job in life, in business, in parenting, in dating, in any area of how I dress, in what I eat, in what I wear, where I go, what I spend my time doing. My job is to be as Sarah as possible. My job is to know what I want and to give it to myself. That's it. That is simply my job in life. That is why I'm on this planet. And I believe that if I stay true to that mission, that I will accomplish all of the things that I'm meant to accomplish on this earth, and I will have the experience that I'm meant to experience, and I will feel fulfilled and contentment. And that has been my experience. That doesn't mean that I'm happy 100% of the time. It means that I am in acceptance of my curriculum in life. I am surrendered to it. I am at peace with it. I am present for it. My job is to be as Sarah as I can be, to be true to myself without agenda, without judgment, without second guessing or questioning. And that leads to my best life, my best, most fulfilled life. And that's been my mission really for the last couple of years since I discovered coaching and since I went through this transformation. And it has absolutely transformed my life. It has transformed my experience of being me. And it has created a life beyond my wildest dreams. And I know that I'm still just getting started. So that's my premise. My job is very simply to be as me as I can be. And I believe that I always know who I am. I do not need to go out and search for who I am. I do not need to go out and become someone different or become the best version of myself. I already am her, and my job is just to allow that. And the way that I connect with my best version or who I'm meant to be, however you want to characterize that, the way I connect with that is by being honest with myself about what I want. And I believe that we know what we want. Always, at any given moment, we have access to that. Now, sometimes you ask yourself what you want and you know the answer instantaneously. And sometimes you have to think about it a little. Sometimes the answer reveals itself to you and it takes maybe a little bit more time and it takes a little bit more quiet, a little bit more connection with yourself. But I believe that what we want, our desire, is always accessible and it's always within us. It's not something outside of ourselves, external to us, that we have to go out and find. So many times I have people come to coaching calls and I will ask them, well, what do you want in any given scenario? Maybe we're talking about decisions in their business, what niche they want to do, what they want to charge. Maybe it's about what they want to wear, what they want in a relationship. I'll ask them what they want and they'll say, I don't know. And I'll just pause for a minute and I'll just let the silence linger and I'll stay with them and I'll look at them and I'll ask them again, what do you think you want? Or if you did know, what would it be? And inevitably, they know the answer. So I don't know what I want is actually just fear and a protective mechanism. It's protecting you from knowing the answer to that question. Now, you might be wondering, why do I want to protect myself from knowing what I want? That sounds amazing. I would love to know what I want. Well, be careful what you wish for. You actually do. But here's the thing. When you know what you want, oftentimes accompanying that knowing is an onslaught of emotions. I'm going to give you a really great and kind of extreme example of this. I was in a relationship that I did not want to be in anymore, but I was not allowing myself to see that or recognize that. And so what I was doing instead, which is so clever and so tricky, is I kept asking my partner, do you even want to be with me? Why do you want to be with me? The relationship was very rocky and like not going well. So we were constantly fighting. And instead of asking myself that question, I was asking him constantly, I feel like you don't even want to be with me. Why are you with me? Why do you want to be with me? And I will never forget this moment. I was in my kitchen unloading the dishes. Oh my goodness, I can feel the emotion. I'm probably going to cry as I recount this story. I immediately can put myself back in that moment. It was such a profound moment, a canon event in my life. I was emptying the dishwasher in my kitchen downstairs, and I had this realization that stopped me in my tracks. I am asking him that question instead of asking myself because I don't want to know the answer. I don't want to face the answer. I knew in that moment, I was on to myself. You're asking him that question because you don't want to ask yourself because you know what the answer is. You don't want to be in this relationship anymore. You feel complete. You are ready to move on. That is your desire. But in order to know that truth, much less give myself that truth and leave that relationship, I had to allow all of this uncomfortable emotion, everything welled up in me at once. Fear, guilt, embarrassment, judgment from myself, fear of judgment from him and people around me, all of these emotions that were they just hit me like a tsunami all at once. And I realized in that moment, I was outsourcing my power. I wasn't asking myself what I wanted. I was instead just asking him what he wanted and going along with what he wanted because he was like, of course I want to be with you. I want to be with you because I love you. And I was like, okay, great. Then I'll still be with you because that's what you want, right? Like such obvious people pleasing. But I was blinding myself to it because I didn't want to tell myself what I wanted because I didn't want to feel all of those emotions. It's that simple. How many times have you guys heard me say in business, you don't have an under earning problem, you have an under feeling problem. And in that moment, I realized I know what I want, but I'm not giving it to myself because I don't want to feel all of these feelings. I'm avoiding feeling all of these emotions. Whew. All right, let's take a breath there. So when I realized that, that was the first step. That was the first breakthrough, was being honest with myself about what I wanted. So I want to encourage you to create this safe space to be honest with yourself about what you want. And when I say safe space, I mean you don't have to take action on it right now. Maybe you're realizing that you want to leave a relationship. Maybe you're realizing you want to raise your prices. Maybe you're realizing you want to make a big change in your business and being honest with yourself. Maybe you want to quit something. Maybe you want to start something. Maybe you want to change your mind in a way that feels really not allowed or audacious or like, who the fuck do you think you are? I want you to give yourself permission to go there, to be honest with yourself without having to commit to make that change. You don't actually have to follow through. And in fact, I think that's a gift that we give ourselves. We're like, hey, you don't have to do it. Babe, I got you. But let's at least tell the truth to ourselves. You don't have to tell the truth to anybody else, but start by telling the truth to yourself. And here's why, because it's an access point. It's a gateway to then being brave and taking action. But it's this really gentle, slow, loving, safe for your nervous system first step to take. Be honest with yourself about what you want and just stop there. Okay, so that's what I did in the kitchen that day. I was honest with myself about what I wanted. And I remember I went upstairs and I just had to lay down. I got in bed and I just cried. And I just felt this tsunami of emotions wash over me and I let it all come up. And it was all of these sensations in my body. It was all of these voices in my head like, you can't do this. And you've been with this person for 4 years. And what about the kids? It's going to feel like a second divorce. All of the shit that came along with that emotion, all of those limiting beliefs and fear, so much fear. I just let it all bubble to the surface. And it was all attached to the realization that I did, in fact, know what I wanted. So I let it all rise to the surface. I let myself have my little meltdown. I let myself have my, oh, shit, is this really what you're going to do? Are you really going to do this? Is this really what you want? I let myself have my cry. I let myself stay in bed for the rest of the night. It was probably like 4 o'clock. I think my kids were at their dad's, so I had some space. And I just stayed in bed for a long time. And I let all of those emotions come to the surface and I felt them. But here's the thing about being honest with yourself. Being honest with yourself and then trusting yourself to feel all of the emotions that come along with that honesty, that is a shortcut. That is a hack to instant courage and self-trust and confidence. So what at first feels like an answer that is so scary you couldn't possibly, like, you know what you want, but you couldn't possibly do it. All of a sudden, once you've felt those emotions, now you're on the other side of all those emotions that, by the way, have been in your body this whole time. You've just been kind of suppressing them and shoving them down, almost like holding an inflated beach ball under the water. It's been there all along, but now you're letting that come to the surface. And what's underneath all of that emotion is this courage and this self-trust and this willingness to do the thing that is in alignment with what you want. Resolve. It's resolve rooted in deep trust that comes from honesty with yourself, that comes with the willingness to feel your emotions. I am not kidding you guys. If you want an instant boost to your self-confidence, be honest with yourself about something that you want and feel the emotions that come along with that. And on the other side of that, you will have up-leveled your courage, your self-confidence, and your self-trust by 10x. It's amazing. It's amazing how instantaneous it is. So you've been honest with yourself about what you want. You've felt the emotions that come with that honesty. Now all that's left is to decide if you're going to be honest with everyone else. Meaning, are you going to take aligned action? Are you going to raise your rates? Are you going to make that change? Are you going to leave that relationship? Are you going to, whatever the thing is, you now have this honesty in yourself. You know what you want. Are you going to give it to yourself now? That's it. You just have that decision. And at any given moment, you have the opportunity to say yes and give yourself what you want. And the answer might be no in this moment. It might be no for the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 days. But any moment that you are alive is an opportunity for you to say, now is the time. Now is the time that I'm going to give this to myself. And I don't remember how many days exactly passed between me being honest with myself about leaving that relationship and feeling all those emotions. But it was very soon after that I knew what I wanted to do and then followed through and did it. And when I had that conversation, I was so calm and so present and had my own back so profoundly that it didn't matter what was going on around me. It didn't matter what the reaction was. I was calm and I was resolute. And that was such a new feeling for me as a people pleaser. I mean, every other time practically in my life when I've shown up in a moment of conflict where I either have buckled under the pressure and gone along with what the other person wanted, or I have been in such freeze mode that I haven't been even able to advocate for myself or haven't even been able to say what I wanted because it felt too uncomfortable. But in that moment, that was one of the first times in my life that I felt like I was standing there with so much love and compassion for myself and for everyone else involved, but for myself first and foremost, strong with my head held high and my shoulders dropped, just at peace and resolute and courageous in my decision and then following through and taking the action. And I never looked back because I had done the work ahead of time of knowing what I wanted, and I had felt the emotions that I needed to feel in order to take action, aligned action, to give myself what I wanted. So that is my practice in life and in business that I do over and over and over again. I will say, in lieu of the self-coaching process, sometimes I'll do some thought work, and I'll share that with you in a minute, like what that looks for, like for me. But this is my process to create the exact life that I want. I'm honest with myself about what I want, from who I want to be with, to how much money I want to make, to what I want to charge, to what I want to do in my business, to what I don't want to do in my business, to where I want to live, to what I want to wear, everything. My job is to be as Sarah as possible. So I'm honest with myself about what I want. And then I feel the emotions that come along with that answer. And then I decide to take aligned action and give myself what I want over and over and over and over again. So it's this constant reconnection with myself. And because of that, I never feel out of alignment or like I'm gaslighting myself. That is one of the main limitations that I saw with coaching through choosing thoughts, right? Like going to the thought first rather than the emotion, because you can go to a thought that you want to think in order to create a result that you want, but it might not feel very true to you. And then you feel like you're gaslighting yourself. You feel like there's nothing to relate to. There's nothing to connect to there. And so it can work sometimes, but it's also limited in how effective it can be because your brain knows that that's not true, that that's not authentic, and it doubles down on the initial limiting belief sometimes. So instead, what I do is I just connect to myself. I just connect without judgment, without condition, without agenda. I just connect to myself and what I want. And this piece is really important. You notice how I just said without judgment. In order to give myself things, let's call them right now, like the bigger things, like the $1 million business or the $100,000 clients. They feel extraordinary, right? Like not many single moms are out here creating $1 million businesses from scratch with their iPhones. Okay. Not many single moms, not many entrepreneurs in general, coaches in general are out here signing $100,000 clients. Like this is an extraordinary life that I've created for myself. I create extraordinary outside of the ordinary results. So how does this process work when you're wanting to create something that's extraordinary? 5 years ago, I did not believe it was possible for me to make $100,000 in a year. I had never made $100K in a year. I was a waitress before I was a stay-at-home mom. I had never made more than $42,000 in a year. I did not think this was possible for myself, but I knew that I wanted it. I have known my entire life, even though I've had limiting beliefs for almost my entire life, we'll say at least my adult life, I've had limiting beliefs about how much money I could make. My entire life, going back to when I was a little girl, I knew I was meant to be wealthy and famous. I knew I was meant for abundance. I was meant for an abundance of resources like money, of attention. One of my first memories, I have this picture taped to my mirror on my vanity, is me on stage at the end of a ballet recital. I maybe am 5 years old and I'm in the middle of a curtsy and I'm on the stage completely by myself. There's a spotlight on me and I am on that stage, and I will never forget that moment of loving being on that stage, loving the applause, loving the attention from such a pure, innocent place. Like that's Sarah, untainted by the world. I have known my entire life that I was meant for an abundance of resources, money, attention, wealth, love, all of it. And as I got older, I started to second guess that, right? As I'm 19, 20, 25, 30, 35, and I don't have those things, I start to second guess. Maybe I was wrong about myself. I started second guessing a lot earlier than that. Actually, I started second guessing when I was 12, when my whole life had wanted to be a professional ballerina. That was my dream, to dance professionally. Like that was my desire. It felt like my calling. And my ballet teacher at 12 years old told me I didn't have what it takes to be a professional ballerina. She said I was too short and my arms were too short and I was too chubby and I would never be a professional dancer. Okay. So also at a young age, I started to second guess myself, and people around me were second guessing me. They were telling me this thing that you think you're meant for, you're not actually meant for it. So of course I started to second guess myself. And I know we all have stories like this. We all can relate to knowings that we had as pure, innocent babies and children that were our birthright. These knowings of what we are meant for that are our birthright that got drilled out of us over the years by outside voices and then our own internal voices. There are those external voices that we then internalized. So giving myself permission to want and then give myself what I have always known I'm meant for has required me to not judge myself. I had to stop judging as a 41-year-old woman living in this day and age in this society. I had to stop judging that I love attention, that I want to be famous, that I want to be filthy fucking rich. I had to stop judging that. You might have even be activated when you heard me say like this is so triggering to hear, especially women say that we want these things out loud. And I was so afraid of what people would think about me. And I was judging that I wanted those things. I remember, this is such a great story. I remember when I was still married, I was out running errands. My husband at the time, Michael, was home with the kids. They were really little, like probably 1 and 3. And I was a stay-at-home mom, so I was often home with the kids. He worked a lot, and it was one of the rare times that he watched them for a couple hours on the afternoon on a weekend, and I went out by myself. And I got dressed up in something that I loved wearing, and I just went out and window shopped. I don't even know if I bought anything, but I was just out around people, walking around, and I was in such a good mood when I came home. And I was talking about how great it felt to be out and have people were complimenting my outfits and I felt all lit up, and I came home with all of this energy and I was energized. And Michael said to me, "Yeah, you love to peacock. You love to just go walk around and let people look at you." And I felt so much shame in that moment. I wanted the earth to open and swallow me up. I was so embarrassed that he said that. And bless his heart, he did not say it in any kind of mean, judgmental way. It was more just like an observation and judgment-free thing that he said to me. But I was so embarrassed, in part because I knew it was true. I knew that what he was saying was so honest and pure about me and about something that brought me joy. And I had so much shame around it. So I will never forget that moment and all the work that I had to do to stop judging myself. And that was such an interesting example too, because he was not judging me. I was judging me. He was just reflecting back to me a truth, and maybe he even loved that about me, but I was judging me. So I had to stop judging that I wanted to make money, a lot of money, that I wanted a lot of attention, that I wanted to be rich, that I wanted to be famous. I had to stop judging those things about me and love those things about me in order to allow them. You are either the lock or the key to everything that you want. You just get to decide. Are you going to be the lock or are you going to be the key? And if you decide to be the key, you have to be honest with yourself about what you want in your life. And you have to stop judging it. And then you have to let yourself feel all of the emotion that comes along with that honesty. And then you will have the opportunity to decide with this newfound courage and self-trust. Am I going to give myself what I want? And here's the thing, even if the answer is no today, you are still already, from this part in the process, you have already shifted yourself from disempowerment to empowerment. Honesty is empowering. So even if today is not the day that you give yourself the thing that you want, you have empowered yourself with your honesty. You have empowered yourself with this self-trust from feeling your emotions. And it is that simple, my friends. That is the key to giving yourself the most extraordinary results in your life. Be honest with yourself, feel your feelings, decide to give yourself what you want from a place of love and non-judgment. Remember, the things that you want, like purely from your heart, your desires of your heart were given to you for a reason. They are your birthright. And most of us spend our entire lives judging them or resisting them or making ourselves wrong because of them. And I want you to know that is a choice. And I want to encourage you to make a different choice starting today. So whatever your self-coaching practice is, I want to invite you to pause for a moment on the thought work and start practicing this, reconnecting with yourself, feeling your emotions, and giving yourself what you want. That is your job. Your job is to be as you can be. And when you allow that to be your main job, you will see everything, the profound ripple effect that that will have in your life, in your clients' lives, in your family's lives. We all want to know the real you. That's the greatest gift that you can give yourself and the people around you, is the opportunity to know and be inspired by the real you. And it makes me emotional because if I can help one woman live her life this way, that will be enough for me, because this is the gift I have given myself, and I will be eternally grateful to myself. And so to pass that on to you is the honor of a lifetime. All right, I'm going to go have a good cry and move this energy. I encourage you to do the same. I love you so very much. All right, go be you.